June 22nd meeting of Finance to order. We'll start with the roll call, which would be Alder Dorf here, Alder Corpus Dax.
Here.
Alder Galvin is excused. I expect Alder Johnson, but in his stead, we have Alder Mark Stoyer, who's going to sit in for him. Thank you. Approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Alder Corpus Dax, second by Alder Stoyer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And approval of the minutes from the May 25th, 2021 meeting.
So moved, and Alder Johnson's here.
I see Alder Johnson. There he is. There you go, Alder Stoyer. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And Alder Johnson is now with us, and we are just up to approval of the minutes. So I will entertain a motion. I think Alder Corpus Dax, seconded by Alder
Second.
Johnson. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion carries. And Alder Johnson, there was just so much on the agenda that we just wanted to get through the first couple things.
Well, I'm looking, it's 4:31.
No, 4:32, sorry.
Well, now it is.
Yeah, we waited 30 seconds. All right, regular business. Number 1, discussion and possible action on 2-year contract for cellular phone service with Cellcom. Contract rates piggyback off Brown County contract agreement. Rate plan analysis attached. Committee, are there any questions about this 2-year contract?
So when we say we're just piggybacking, I mean, is this getting, do we have an existing cell service with somebody else?
I'm going to let procurement manager Alvin Winters answer that.
No, we have existing service with Cellcom. A few years ago when Fire and PD decided to make the switch to AT&T, the decision was made not to sign a new formal contract with Cellcom. They currently provide the service. By signing a 2-year contract and committing to them for 2 years, we're able to get discounted rates each month, which will be a savings about $1,100 per month by signing a contract with them. So we currently have them. This is just an opportunity for us to commit to them. In turn, they'll give us discounted rates.
We're just using the Brown County contract.
Correct.
Because we can do that.
For a long time, we would go out for bid and Brown County would piggyback off of our contracts, and this time around it's going the other way.
Okay. Is that okay, Alder Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that we just paid for 1/4 of the contingency request from law department then, right?
Not a 4, it's only $1,100.
A month.
That's per month.
No, really?
Yep. So
I'll take it. All right. Thank you, Kelvin. Okay.
I'd move to approve.
Move to
Second.
approve by Alder Johnson, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Number 2, discussion and possible action on updates to the procurement manual, including updating the procurement threshold to $10,000. Updated manual explain about the procurement threshold going to $10,000. Would that be Calvin as well?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
So currently the procurement threshold, which requires us to do some sort of competitive process, is set at $5,000. I'm not exactly sure when that threshold was set, but from my research and from my previous positions, that threshold is very old. That was kind of the threshold set typically back in like the 80s and the 90s. $5,000 doesn't get you very far anymore. So I am proposing to up that threshold to $10,000. So anything up to $10,000 can be made at the purchase at the discretion of the department. 99% of the time when a department comes to me with something in that $5,000 to $10,000 range, they say, "Can I buy this?" I say, "Did you get 3 quotes?" They say, "Well, we talked. We know this is the best price." Now they're having to go back to the vendors and request a quote, even though they know that that vendor is not going to win. They're just creating busy work for everybody. So I'm proposing to raise this threshold to $10,000. And when we get above $10,000, that's when we start going into our competitive processes. So really the departments are already doing their research. It's their money they're spending. They obviously want to get the most for their dollars. So we're just creating less administrative burden on them.
Any questions about that?
I just want Alderdorf.
Sure, Alder Johnson.
Calvin, if I recall correctly, we raised the threshold a couple of years to 25,000. Was that for the ability to just make staff level decisions on purchases?
Yes, so 25,000 is the level that requires us to bring it to committee and then ultimately to council.
Okay, so really what this is affecting is the need to conduct an RFP.
Yeah, so we don't do formal bids or RFPs until about the $25,000 threshold. Certain circumstances we might, but below that threshold, we'll do an RFQ or we'll get multiple quotes. This is raising that from 5,000 to 10,000.
Okay, seems reasonable to me.
Would you like to make that into a motion?
Well, I don't want to take all the fun away from Alder Corpus Dax.
All right, Alder Corpus Dax,
Motion to approve.
Second.
second by Alder Johnson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries. Number 3, for consideration and possible action to adopt a resolution supporting the legislation of how municipalities pay tax refunds. Would
Move to
anyone
approve.
Move to approve. Okay, great. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor say aye.
Well, Alderdorf, I would certainly, if the assessor would like to speak to it, maybe we'd let him, but the
He's been
paperwork.
waiting here for hours. So
At least 5.
at least 5. Would you like to just speak to it briefly?
Well, I can speak to it briefly.
Okay.
Basically, this is a housekeeping thing that the legislature put together because of 2 different tax refunds, whether it be for unlawful tax or an illegal tax, whether it be for, if there's an excessive tax for a claim on a 7437, which is if somebody thinks their assessment's too high and they go through court, or if it's an illegal tax where it's somebody disagrees over an exemption issue. Those 2 different options, they have to pay the taxes in advance. Then it goes through the process. And as the clock is ticking, they pay interest on that. And then if they do win in court, we have to pay interest back to them. And in this case, the 2 different types of court cases have different interest rates on them. This is just bring them in line with each other. And also in this interest of fairness, the judiciary and the people down in Madison decided that it's only fair that the other taxing jurisdictions share in the pain of paying this back. So up until this point, the interest was only paid by the cities. Now they're going to have the counties and the school district also share in paying the interest back when it does accrue. So it's just it's common sense type of law that doesn't come out of Madison very often.
All right. Well,
The state is both wise and just.
Yes, they are. And on the same time, they are right now passing a law that will probably be signed on Thursday to exempt personal property. So there's that.
We'll talk about that more next time, probably, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a motion and a second, I think, already. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Great. Now this one will be a little bit more discussion. Consideration with possible action to have staff study the need for more staff for the city attorney's office, referred from the May 25th, 2021 personnel meeting. We will go to Attorney Chavez.
So I'm going to hope that my internet holds up because I've not called in yet. So as requested, I have brought to this committee a document explaining the various items that we would be hoping to have farmed out to outside counsel. So you'll recall that we had looked at a couple of different options to kind of help relieve some of the backlog and the long time frame delays that we've been experiencing in our department. And what ultimately came out of that is that the best option at this point to address that specific issue of the time frames and to get everything in front of you guys faster, it's really farming out specific items to outside counsel. So I went through, identified the items where I think we can create some, we can alleviate some of the major issues or some of the smaller issues to allow for employees to start moving forward on other items. So for example, if we farm out these, then I can have our legislative attorney start focusing again on some of the other ordinances that are currently in the queue. And then these are some of the ones that we really have to get done quickly as well. So these are the main ones that we feel like we can farm out at a reasonable rate. And then also in that is some litigation that if I have to pull those in-house, then I'm going to have to pull our attorneys off of existing workloads and those other projects. So the first three are ordinances. It is the ethics ordinance, the emergency management ordinance, and then the massage licensing ordinance. The ethics ordinance, we received a quote from Michael May, who is the former city attorney in Madison. He is now of counsel with Borden and Clark. Based on his expertise in municipal law, we felt like he was the right person to move forward with this because he does have experience dealing with ethical recommendations and directives to council. So he would be able to implement those at a reasonable or within a reasonable amount of time. So he gave us the quote on there. We would also be tapping his experience for the emergency management ordinance. So the emergency management ordinance is what we have whenever we have to declare an emergency. What happens administratively within the city is not clarified. So you'll remember when we had to declare the state of emergency with respect to the curfew, we didn't really have anything in place where we could cite to our own ordinances so that we were able to cite people who were in violation of that ordinance or in violation of our curfew under municipal law. We actually had to cite them under state law. And so this would clean that up and create that framework for what actually happens anytime there's an emergency declared within the city. And then the last one, of course, is the massage licensing. And the reason we picked this is because we haven't had an opportunity to do a whole lot of work. What we have done is kind of some of the baseline, the policy evaluation, and then also generating the what we anticipate will be the amount of time that will be dedicated to these. And it's going to be a while before we're able to get that one in the queue. And we also recognize that it's an ongoing need. So pulling these three off allows us to focus on the sign ordinance and Chapter 33, which are a couple of the other ones that have really been outstanding for a really long time, which is why we picked these ones specifically. Then the other item
about the first one. So does that doesn't include the code of conduct, right? That's just the ethics, or it will?
It will, yes.
It's the ethics ordinance and the code of conduct.
Yeah, to be clear, our ethics ordinance, there's nothing wrong with our ethics ordinance. It's how it interacts with the code of conduct that's really the problem.
Okay.
So we'd be creating a unified, codified ethics ordinance that we would apply to everything rather than having a separate code of conduct and a separate ethics ordinance.
So that the code of conduct, that kind of lengthy document, that won't exist anymore?
Correct. This would be taking what exists and turning it into something better.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. All right.
And then the two items that, the two litigation items, the Linsmeyer and the Habitat for Humanity. So those are both issues that are being appealed. A variance was granted and a variance was denied. And in those cases, both of them are seeking review of the Board of Appeals decision. They will require time to research these issues as well as brief them. And so this is litigation that we would be entering into. In order for me to continue to dedicate employees to the actual ordinance drafting, I have to take some of the litigation off our plates. And these new items are perfect for that. So that's why I'm presenting these as options. That was my cat, Poppy. I can see everybody smiled. Poppy comes around whenever I'm talking. And then I think that was it. So those are what those items are.
Are there any questions? Alder Johnson.
Yeah, I think, when I look at ethics ordinance, that makes sense, right? Expertise, something we've been waiting on for a while. I like the idea of including that. Emergency management ordinance comes with necessity. Zoning and planning board of appeals actions. I mean, obviously that's very timely, and we need to have that litigation defense there. The only one that I'm really questioning is massage licensing ordinance. I know why that's in front of the law department, but the thing that just crosses my mind, of course, is $10,000 of taxpayer expense to outsource it. But it doesn't seem like there's a real urgency around that one. I mean, if we held on to that one in-house and had staff deal with it, what would be the timetable before staff could get around to that?
It will be a while. So I actually pulled this one off the legislative attorney's desk about a month and a half ago and just redistributed it to the other attorneys in the office to see if we could get movement on it a little bit faster. And what we're finding is that this was going to be pretty labor intensive, not necessarily because of the drafting. That's going to be the relatively easy portion of it, which still will take a decent amount of time, but because there are a lot of other moving parts associated with it. So since it is a licensing issue, we have to make sure that all of the issues pertaining to licensing are addressed as well. So that means making sure that everything within the clerk's office is going to be clarified, everything with regards to potential revocation is clarified. So there's just a lot attached to it. So with that, and that's why I say what we've done is all just the preliminary work and realized this is a much bigger undertaking than I think the original thought was, which is we'll just adopt an ordinance, but there's a lot associated with it. So with that, it's going to be a while still before we're able to get to it. I would say at the very least, we're looking end of the year, potentially next year, before we'd realistically have something in. Because I have my two non-legislative attorneys working on it. So just as a matter of course, it's not what they do on a regular basis. So it's going to take them a little bit longer to draft it anyways. And then they're also having to work on it as their workloads allow. I have a prosecutor who stays busy with prosecutions, and then I have our deputy who is really focused on all of the records requests and then all of our contracts, and we've been pretty heavy on records requests and contracts this year.
So are you looking at this one thinking that with outside expertise that we can perform the work more quickly as well? For example, it might take 10 hours of work that's contracted out, but maybe it would take us 30 hours to do it in-house. Because I mean, I'm just kind of looking at the thinking, gosh, 10 hours of work. It's not a ton, right?
Mm-hmm. So I'm using the experience, I'm basing it off of the experience of these outside attorneys and the fact that they feel like they can do it within this time frame. Honestly, I feel like their numbers are slightly low. But, everybody feels like they can provide us something within these time periods. I actually asked them to give us a higher number and they felt they were comfortable with these numbers. But what I will say is that if we go with somebody who's new to drafting, it's going to take a much longer time than if we take somebody who is experienced. And then the other reason I picked these ones specifically is because they are something that we can hand off for a relatively reasonable rate. Something like a sign code revision, which is what we have to go with, that is going to take an inordinate amount of time. And I know that some people feel like they can do them in a real quick, I'm just going to go and do some flashes, but there's a lot that goes into a sign code. I've done them in the past, and these are more like $40,000, $50,000 undertakings by themselves. So I didn't want to bring that as a solution because that just takes one thing off the table. Whereas here I can get some more things moving, and a more cost-effective approach would be to have those types of those really expensive, really in the weeds, thick of it type ordinances remain in-house. So we can pull one of those off of there. I would say that the massage ordinance is probably the one to pull off. If any of them, it would just be with the understanding that it's not as high on the priority list as the other ordinances that we are going to focus on, which would be the sign ordinance in Chapter 33.
I would say, I will get to you in a minute, Elder Sir, but I would say that the will of council seemed to be to get that massage licensing ordinance done. And it had to do a lot with, is it the Military Avenue area, and maybe I'll let Alder Steuer talk because maybe he knows more about it than I do. Go ahead, Alder
All right,
Steuer.
thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with you on that. We've been meeting with Military Avenue, Leah Weicker at the bid district there for several years now, and she's been taking this on almost by herself with the police department. So Alder Wery, myself, Alder Vanderleest, we've been involved a bit, and I realize it's on the west side, but there are other areas throughout the city that have these issues as well. So, could we hold off? I suppose, but I think one of the worries that we have on Military Avenue, especially, is that these places are cropping up here and there in other businesses, legitimate businesses. And I think we're going to lose some of these businesses, and, we don't want that. So there are people that own certain buildings out there that will rent to some of these folks because they want the rent, but they're not looking at who's renting. So anyway, it's kind of long and complicated. And I realize that, there are a number of things, the ethics ordinance, I think is very important. And I'd love to see that taken care of sooner than kind of on our plate for a long, long time. But anyway, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I think it's pretty important that we look at this massage ordinance and not just sweep that under the rug. Thank you.
Alder Gerlach.
I have a question. So when I read this, it sounded to me like you were talking about possibly expanding the staff of the attorney's office. And I think the solution I'm hearing is temporarily, as the term you're using, Attorney Chavez, farm things out. So this would be a temporary fix. And then are we going to assume that it's going to happen again and again? Has there been any consideration given to permanent staff, or was that never the intent?
There has been discussion about that. What was ultimately recommended at this point is that so onboarding somebody is going to take time, and then getting them up to speed so that they're trained and know how to draft stuff is also going to take time. So I can add somebody to the staff, but it's going to take a little, unless somebody's already trained on how to draft ordinances, they're not going to be able to just step in and draft something that's going to be ready for proposal immediately. It's still going to have some other review by other attorneys. And so with that, we recognize that that's not what we were asked was how to get some of these projects going faster. And so this is the solution to make that happen. We are looking at whether or not another attorney in the department is appropriate. But we also, given that the budget is coming up so quickly and we know that it's not a solution for what was asked previously, we're looking at that to time it with the budget. And so that's why it's not being proposed at this time. We also looked at farming, instead of farming specific projects out, we looked at hiring somebody who is a seasoned attorney, maybe somebody who is recently retired, still taking a few gigs on the side. And we weren't able to find anybody who was looking for the type of work that we would be looking to hand over.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion, or I'll entertain a motion?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Alder Johnson. I'll second that just for fun.
And Alder Dorf, I'd just like to provide a little bit of clarification. Alder Steuer brought out some really great points about the massage parlor ordinance. It was never my intent to suggest we should, not do it. It was
Right.
What's the most efficient way to get it done? Because I think clearly it needs some revision. So just wanted to at least clarify that point, but I support the proposal after hearing the explanation from the city attorney.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, number 5 is report of the Claims Committee. Were there any questions about the Claims Committee?
Move to receive
No.
and place on file.
All right,
Second.
move to receive and place on file by Alder Johnson, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Number 6, for consideration and possible action on the 2021 borrowing request. Who would like to start? Or do we have no questions and we'll just approve that? We've talked about it. Yes, Alder Johnson.
For some reason, if my memory's tricking me, Director Ellenbecker, please just tell me so. But I thought we had the total bond request down to $7.5 million.
Yes, there has been a couple things that have changed, just slightly. I'm trying to get to my document. There was one mistake that I found when I presented it last time, which it was $160,000 change. What that is in the Parks Department, they have I think it's called a spider lift. I have to go back and find it. Yep, it's a spider lift and a spider lift trailer. And in the very first version, it was in there at 100%, and we move out 88% to storm. So I already had this manual calculation to move out that $160,000 to storm. And when the final version came out to you, it already was reduced. So that took it from 7.5 up to 7.6. And so and then on top of it, we also are making a intentional change on what we're doing with the bond issuance costs, and that is happening this year. We do have a representative, Jonathan, here also from Ellers. But what happened is in the past, what we have done is we have used, it's the way he has been doing it for a very long time is they would take, let's say if somebody borrowed $500,000 for, let's say, a fire engine. They would request $500,000. We would get $500,000, and then we would take about $7,000 off the top, and we would take a portion of every one of the bond proceeds to pay for issuance costs. So basically, we were using bond proceeds to pay for issuance costs, and we have a brand new financial advisors team this year, which is Ellers, and they didn't necessarily care for that, and they recommended that one, we could do two things. We could do it the same way we've always done it this year, and then make the change for next year. And really, we have to increase our borrowing request a little bit to borrow what is in the capital improvement plan, and then have borrow slightly additional dollars to cover the issuance costs. And I just decided at this point we would bring it to you and explain that to you and let you know that they had strong recommendations. No matter what going forward, we should do that. I just thought, since we're the first time working with them, maybe we should make the change this year. So that did change in total. The total issuance cost and rounding was about $220,000 on top of the 7.6 that we needed. That when you're looking directly at the general fund. And then, of course, there's some other additional ones in there for the shipyard, which is a TID, a sanitary storm, and parking. So those are the two things that would have changed, Alder Johnson, since the time that we presented at the last Finance Committee meeting.
So help me understand that next. I'm looking at this, the spreadsheet. And maybe it's just a matter of not following the flow. So I see the general levy total, 7.6, but when I look a little further down, it says 8.5 for bond.
So it should be so that 7.6, if you look up on top, there's 4.4 of it is bond, which means we're going to take it out for 20 years. And then we're going to take out $3.1 million in notes, which means it's going to be a 10-year borrowing. So general fund, we're going to split it between bonds and notes for 7.6. So then you take the 4.460 bonds on top, and then right below it, we're going to add 20-year borrowing for free storm and parkings. So that $4 million is added to the $4 million on top. So in total, we are going to borrow $8.5 million of 20-year borrowing in bonds, and we're going to borrow $3.1 million in notes. So the grand total of borrowing is $11.7 million. There's $200,000 for the issuance costs, leaving and when I say rounding, for every one of the categories, they have to be rounded up to an even $5,000 category. Our bond council has grouped these together, and in some cases, they had to round up a few of them to even $5,000, or if it was just slightly over, they rounded it down. So with rounding, the total net bond size that we are looking at, bond and notes, is $11.9 million. So when we talked in Finance Committee meeting last time, we were looking at where it's a 7.6 in the middle. 5. So that's where you're seeing a slight increase. And now we're adding the $220,000 on top of this whole borrowing, including sanitary storm, parking, and shipyard. And so the total borrow borrowing technically really went up $300,000 from what I showed you the last time. $100,000 adjustment, and then this $200,000 for issuance costs.
Okay, and I appreciate that explanation. As soon as you started explaining after I asked the question, I recognized the bond and the notes separation. But I think it's good that you walked through that for everyone's benefit. Makes sense. Thank you.
And if we want further explanation, I'm sure Alder Gerlach would be happy to give us more of an explanation.
Absolutely, I understood everything she said.
All right. Any other questions on this? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Alder Johnson.
Second.
Second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion. All right. Now,
So yeah, within your packet, I just want to let you know, like really with that item, I should have told you that. I mean, there's 2 packets of information that was put together by Ellers. So I didn't know if you had any questions on those, that information. That leads into all the resolutions that we have to now get approved, to the initial resolutions to take to council.
and not just, the resolutions are just kind of saying what we just approved, right? But we're
Correct.
breaking it down into individual resolutions. So.
So could I
we
do a
have-
motion to suspend the rules and adopt items 7 through 17?
Can he do that?
Or 16.
I would,
Through-
through 17. I would agree. I would believe, I mean, but attorney could probably answer that, but I would believe that you should be able to combine them together, yes.
You can take them up together and then you can, so you'd want to take them all up at once. You'd suspend the rules to take them all up. And then you would suspend the rules again to take them up for vote. I know, it's because we need to get them all on the floor. So that's what I mean by we need to take them all up. And then you can suspend the rules to adopt them together. And it will have to be a roll call vote.
No, Alder Corpus Dax did say about, is 17, it is included then? It doesn't just go to 16?
It does 17, that is another resolution. The number 7 through 16 are really pertains to the bonding request. And the last item is really for the $3.1 million of the notes.
So should we do that one separately, or doesn't that even matter? It doesn't matter. Okay. All right. I'm sure you can repeat that motion, Alder Johnson. So go.
Repeated.
Okay. So we're
Second.
suspending the rules to take up items 7 through 17
With one roll call vote.
with one roll call vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay. Now we're voting on them. Right? Attorney
Yes.
Chavez? Okay.
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to vote on the items 7 through 17.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Alder Corpus Dax,
Second?
second by Alder Johnson. All those in favor say aye.
Need a roll call.
Aye. Opposed? Oh, roll call. Okay. Alder Johnson,
Yes.
Alder Corpus Dax,
Yes.
Alder Dorf, yes. Were there 3 things we had to do or just 2?
You did it right. That was it.
That was it. Awesome. Wow.
Round of
Thank you,
report.
Alder Johnson. Whoa. Report of the finance
Stick with me. I'll
director.
get you far, Alderdorf.
You will. Thank you. Yes, Alder Gerlach.
I just want to say that I would have done the same thing Alder Johnson did.
I'm sure, I know you would.
I understand that part of finance.
All right. Do you have a report, Finance Director?
I just want to give you a report. I decided not to put it on as a special item, but it is a follow-up of something Alder Johnson had asked for, and I didn't know if it needed to be a new item. But he had asked how we are planning to get some public input back from some public input for the American Rescue Plan Act. And at this point, still very, very preliminary, but the mayor had suggested and wanted to bring it back to you and let him know that he is planning to have 2 public meetings, late summer, early fall. So I don't have a lot more detail, but I know that is important, and I've reminded him, and he knows that we want that public input meeting to be prior to us having made decisions, so that they have input on the front end, not just, kind of reviewing after the decisions have been made. So that is the only update I have on that. And then to go with that, if you remember a month or so back, you gave us permission to hire a grant administrator to handle this large grant. And we have hired a grant administrator, and she will be starting on Monday. So that will help us as we move forward with coordinating meetings and communications and tracking expenses. So
Can you tell us who you hired or not? Can you say your name or not really? Okay,
I'm not sure. I'm
Then
not
don't.
sure. Okay.
We'll find out Monday. It'll be a big surprise.
Right,
It'll be
and I
fun.
can always introduce you at the next meeting, or on Tuesday,
good.
maybe, once she
On
starts,
Tuesday.
I can do that, but.
Was
so
it
just
Lynn
an
Gerlach?
update.
It's all right. Thank you, Director Ellenbecker. The contingency fund used to be $150,000, but now it has been reduced by about $43,000, correct? Director Ellenbecker, because we did approve the money going to law, right?
Correct. Yes, I was going back. I apologize. I have to go back and exactly see how we did the motion for number 4, if we mentioned a dollar amount or if these items, yes, it will be reduced by that. Does anyone remember what the exact motion was on that item?
I said move to approve, but it was inferred that it would be approved based on the report that was submitted by law. So from contingency with the amounts that were indicated.
Okay, thank you. That's clarifies it. Thank you.
All right, so that's good. And the next finance meeting will be all the way Tuesday, July 27th at 4:30 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Moved by Alder Johnson, second by Alder Dorf. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And we'll go on to personnel. Alder Johnson, you're in charge of that. Do you want a 3-minute break or just go right in?